Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are tackling something that I think is really going to hit home for a lot of you. You know that feeling when you're trying to create something, a project at work, a personal brand, whatever it is, and you just feel this immense pressure to produce.
The content treadmill.
Yeah.
It feels like the defining feature of the modern digital landscape.
Exactly. It's that feeling of, I need to post, I need to ship, I need to say something, and then, you just burn out.
Right.
But the research we're looking at today suggests a different path. It asks a pretty radical question. What if, instead of trying to be a content creator, you aim to be a Renaissance person?
And that's a compelling shift. We're moving away from this sort of industrial assembly line model of creativity where volume is everything.
Yeah.
And looking at something much more holistic, the source material calls this framework the synthesis.
And the synthesis is the perfect name for it because, frankly, on paper, this looks like the most chaotic dinner party in history.
It really does.
I mean, we're looking at a blueprint that combines 6 very specific, very different philosophers: Socrates, Confucius, Nietzsche, Laozi, Sun Tzu, and Voltaire, to build a sophisticated strategy for communication.
It does sound like a mess when you just list them out like that. But the goal isn't just to sound smart by dropping names. The mission of this deep dive is to explore how to balance the internal psyche, how you process the world with external action.
The integration of opposites.
That's what the source calls it.
Which is a fancy way of saying we're going to mash up some conflicting worldviews to find a middle ground, and we're going to look at specific segment ideas from these philosophers. So this isn't just high-level theory.
No, it gets very practical. We're going to see how abstract philosophy can translate into a concrete media strategy. It provides a real structure.
So where do we start?
I think the best place to start is with the mindset. Before you press record, before you write that memo, before you even open your mouth in a meeting, how are you thinking?
Okay.
And that brings us to our first pairing, the mindset, featuring Socrates and Confucius.
The ultimate odd couple.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start with Socrates. The source calls this the foundation. We all know Socrates is the guy who drank the hemlock, but what's his specific role here?
Well, Socrates is here to save us from being superficial. He's famous for that maxim. The unexamined life is not worth living.
Right.
In the context of creating content or leading a discussion, this is the antidote to just nodding along. Socrates demands that you don't just skim the surface.
The source mentions a specific Greek term here that I love, aporia. Can we unpack that?
Yes, aporia. It translates roughly to a state of being at a loss or puzzlement. It's that moment where you realize you don't actually know what you thought you knew.
I see.
In the Socratic method, the goal isn't to spoon-feed answers. It's to ask questions that peel back the layers until the other person hits that wall of aporia.
Which is terrifying, by the way. If I'm hosting something or leading a team, I want to look like the expert. I want to have the answers.
Of course.
Inducing puzzlement feels like I'm losing control.
And that's the trap. We think expertise means having all the answers. Socrates argues that true wisdom is knowing what you don't know. The source gives us a killer practical application for this. The gadfly question.
The gadfly question. This references how Socrates described himself as a fly stinging a lazy horse to keep it awake.
Exactly. So in a deep dive or a piece of content, this is a dedicated segment where you ask one question designed specifically to make the guest and the audience doubt a certainty.
Can you give me an example? If I'm interviewing, say, a productivity expert, what's a gadfly question?
Okay, so a standard question is, what are your top tips for saving time? A gadfly question would be something like, you spent your career teaching people to save time, but what are we saving it for? Have you ever considered that efficiency is actually stripping the meaning out of the tasks we're trying to finish?
Oof, yeah, that stops the autopilot immediately.
It forces a moment of genuine, unscripted thought. It creates that aporia. But here's the danger. If you only have Socratic questioning, you just have deconstruction.
You're just poking holes in everything. It's just chaos.
Total chaos. And that is where our second philosopher comes in to save the day.
Confucius. The source calls this the skeleton.
If Socrates is the questioning mind, Confucius is the backbone of behavior. He emphasizes structure, hierarchy, and ritual. The key terms here are lai, which means proper conduct or ritual, and ren, which is humaneness.
It's fascinating because we usually think of rituals as, religious. But here it's about treating the content itself as sacred.
Precisely. It's about respect. Respect for the hierarchy of knowledge, respect for the guest, and crucially, respect for the audience's time. It changes the vibe from just a casual, messy chat to something with weight.
The interview becomes a sacred ritual.
With impeccable etiquette. So Socrates provides the spark, but Confucius builds the fireplace. And the segment idea here is really touching. It's called the filial minute.
Okay, what's that?
This draws on the Confucian virtue of filial piety, respect for one's parents and ancestors. But in a creative context, the filial minute is a dedicated moment to acknowledge the mentors, the traditions, or the giants on whose shoulders the current topic stands.
I love that. In a world where everyone is trying to be a thought leader and pretend they invented everything, this segment says, no, I am part of a lineage. It grounds the conversation. It adds humility.
So you have the mindset, Socratic curiosity within a Confucian structure. But a mindset alone doesn't create anything. You need energy.
This is where it gets really interesting. We move to part 2, the creative engine. And for fuel, we are turning to Friedrich Nietzsche.
Nietzsche, the source calls him the fuel. This is where we get into vitality and intensity.
Nietzsche creates such a stark contrast to Confucius. While Confucius wants order and propriety, Nietzsche wants us to be the poets of our lives. He talks about the Übermensch.
The Übermensch, or overman. In this context, it's about the creator who rejects the herd mentality.
Herd mentality gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
But what does it look like in media?
It's chasing the algorithm. It's seeing that everyone is doing 60-second dance videos, so you feel you must do 60-second dance videos. It's adopting the opinions that are safe and trendy.
I see.
Nietzsche would say that's a betrayal of your potential. He calls for creating your own values, your own voice, with real intensity.
And the practical application here is wild. It's called the idol smasher.
The idol smasher. This is a segment where you take a popular idea, something everyone in your niche agrees is good or true, and you just dismantle it. You show why it's a dead idea.
It's dangerous. It's controversial.
It has to be. For example, if you're in the tech world, an idol smasher segment might be. Everyone says move fast and break things is the way to innovate. I'm telling you that concept is dead, and it's actually destroying your product quality.
Wow. It cuts right through the noise. But, I mean, if you're just smashing idols all day, screaming about how everyone is wrong, you're going to exhaust yourself.
And you're going to exhaust your listener, which is why every Nietzsche needs a Laozi.
The Taoist master. The source calls this pillar the flow.
We're looking at the Tao Te Ching here. The core concept is Wu Wei.
Wu Wei. Often translated as non-action, right?
Yeah.
Which sounds like doing nothing. How does doing nothing help me produce content?
It's not doing nothing. A better translation is effortless action. It's the difference between swimming upstream and floating with the current.
Yeah.
Nietzsche wants to push, to direct, to dominate the conversation. Laozi says, don't over-edit, allow for silence.
So if a conversation goes off the rails, say we start talking about gardening instead of marketing, Laozi says, follow it.
Exactly. If the energy is there, follow the path. Don't force it back to your rigid agenda. That's where the magic happens. And the segment idea for this is so simple, yet I almost never hear it: the empty vessel.
Describe the empty vessel for us.
It is a 30-second transition of just pure ambient sound or music. No talking, no ads. Just space.
That is bold. In a world of 2x speed listening, giving someone 30 seconds of nothing.
Think about the pacing. You've just done a gadfly question and an idol smasher. The audience's brain is buzzing. They are overstimulated.
Right.
The empty vessel allows the sediment to settle. It respects the listener's cognitive load. It turns the content from a lecture into an experience.
It's the silence between the notes that makes the music. Okay. So we have the mindset with Socrates and Confucius and the creative engine with Nietzsche and Laozi. Now we need to get this out into the world.
We need to talk about strategy and voice. This is part 3, the delivery.
And for strategy, who else?
Who else but the general himself, Sun Tzu?
The art of war. The source calls this the execution. Now, usually Sun Tzu is used by, finance dros talking about crushing the competition. Is that what we're doing here?
Not at all. That's a really superficial reading. Sun Tzu's core philosophy is that the highest excellence is winning without fighting.
Winning without fighting. How does that work in a crowded market?
If you are screaming to be heard, if you are fighting for attention, you've already lost the positional advantage. Sun Tzu advises knowing the terrain and finding the gap.
The gap in the market.
Right. He talks about attacking emptiness with fullness. So you look for where the audience is underserved. If everyone else is doing loud, high-energy, motivational shouting, the gap might be calm, analytical, quiet breakdowns.
So you don't fight the noise?
You offer the silence. You gain a positional advantage.
It's very calculated. And the segment idea is the strategic move.
This is a takeaway segment. It's where you pivot to the listener and say, okay, we've had this great philosophical discussion. Here's exactly how you apply today's lesson to gain an advantage in your own life.
It satisfies the listener's selfish need. It answers the "what's in it for me" question.
Exactly. It turns the content into a weapon or a tool for the listener.
So Sun Tzu gives us the plan. But what do we found like? If we're just strategic, we might sound robotic. That's where our final philosopher comes in, Voltaire.
Voltaire represents the voice. He was a master of wit, irony, and satire. He used humor to speak truth to power.
The source says the balance here is being bold enough to be controversial, but responsible enough to defend claims with logic.
That's the key. Voltaire wasn't a clown, he was a critic. He used humor to expose absurdity. If your content is too dry, it's an audio textbook. If it's too silly, it's a distraction. Voltaire adds the personality, the sparkle.
He lets you say dangerous things with a smile.
He does, and the segment is called the Candide Commentary.
After his book, Candide.
Right. This is a closing monologue. You use wit to summarize the absurdity of the topic, maybe poke a little fun at the industry or yourself, but then you point toward a better way to live.
It's ending on a high note. Smart, funny, but insightful.
It implies, look, the world is crazy, but we can navigate it.
So we've built this incredible structure. We have the Socratic inquiry, Confucian ethics, Nietzschean vitality, Taoist flow, Sun Tzu's strategy, and Voltairean wit. But why these six? The source talks about a hidden meaning.
This is where we step back and look at the whole picture. It's not a random assortment. It is, as the source calls it, the integration of opposites.
We've got East and West, chaos and order.
Exactly. Look at the pairings we discussed. Thesis, antithesis. If a creator is too Sun Tzu, they come across as manipulative, all ego, all strategy.
And if they're too lousy, they're all flow with no direction, and the show goes nowhere.
Precisely. The source brings up the Hegelian dialectic. That sounds intimidating. What does it mean in this context?
Yeah, break that down.
It's just the idea that progress comes from conflict. You have a thesis, let's say, the intensity of Nietzsche. Then you have an antithesis, the flow of Laozi. When these collide, they don't cancel each other out. They create a synthesis.
And that synthesis is us, the creator.
That synthesis is the harmonized self. It's the middle way, a path that is intellectually rigorous because of Socrates, but creatively explosive because of Nietzsche. It's structured, yet it flows. It's strategic, yet human.
It really challenges you to look at your own habits. I'm realizing I might be a little too much lousy sometimes. I just let things drift too much. I need more Sun Tzu.
And that's the beauty of the framework. It's a diagnostic tool. It prevents you from becoming a caricature. You know, we often fear being boxed in, oh, he's just the funny guy, or she's just the data person.
Right.
This framework forces complexity. It prevents you from being a robot. It forces you to be a Renaissance person.
Exactly. And this isn't just for people making shows. This is for the learner listening right now. You are the curator of your own information diet. You are the broadcaster of your own identity.
So when you're in a meeting, are you just regurgitating data? Or are you being Socratic? Are you just following company policy because that's how we do it?
Or are you ready to be an idol smasher?
It turns every professional interaction into a creative act.
I love that. Okay, before we wrap up, I want to leave the listener with something to actually do. We talked about the idol smasher concept earlier.
Yes, and I think that's the perfect place to end.
So here is our challenge to you. Look at your own professional life or your personal life. What is one dead idea you are holding on to?
Maybe it's a process at work that everyone hates but keeps doing. Maybe it's a belief about your own limitations or a social obligation that brings you no value.
Whatever it is, ask yourself, are you holding on to it just because of herd mentality?
Yeah.
And what would happen if you used a bit of that Nietzschean vitality to smash it today?
Clear the rubble, make room for the new, see what grows in the empty space.
That's the synthesis. Thanks for diving deep with us.